August 7th, 1942. You hit the beach at Guadalcanal, backed by the biggest Allied fleet the Pacific has seen. 48 hours later, you wake to an empty horizon. No farewell, no resupply. Just open water where a navy used to be. You are standing on a jungle island with half your supplies, 150 rounds per man, and a Japanese force closing in from every direction. The men who endured what came next called themselves the Raggedy Ass Marines. What they gave to hold one muddy airstrip would quietly turn the tide of the Pacific War. Dawn breaks over the water. August 7th, 1942. The ramp drops. Salt spray hits your face, boots sink into warm surf, and the noise is everywhere. Engines roaring, shouted orders, the clatter of rifles against metal. The air smells like oil and wet sand. You haul 30 pounds on your back, 13 in your pack, rifle slung tight, and every step drags you forward into the unknown. Ahead, the tree line waits, dark and tangled. But for now, the only enemy is the surf and your own pounding heart. You're not alone. All around, young faces, some still soft, some already lined by worry, move in the same direction. Company A, 1st Battalion of the 5th Marines, 45 men, hit Red Beach at 7:45. The first wave. No gunfire yet, just the slap of waves and the crunch of boots on coral. The silence is tense, but it holds. Then comes the second wave. More men, mortars, sandbags, engineers with half-tracks and tools. The LVTS groan under the load, some grinding to a halt on the reef, forcing you to wade the last stretch, water up to your chest, packs above your head. Sand sticks to everything. The heat is already rising. By 8:12 you've dug in, shallow foxholes scraped from the gritty shore, eyes fixed on the jungle. The airfield, the reason you're here, lies just beyond the trees. The Japanese left it half-finished, grass grown high on the strip. By 9:30, Marines cross open ground, rifles ready, expecting an ambush that never comes. The perimeter is yours. You catch your breath, heart hammering. No one cheers. The work begins at once. Engineers laying corduroy roads with planks ripped from wrecked barges, patrols disappearing into the green, sweat pouring down faces, uniforms soaked through before noon. Humidity clings, insects swarm, and the first hint of exhaustion creeps in. You taste it in the back of your throat, metal and fear. The gear is heavy, but the sense of purpose is heavier. Training back in New Zealand didn't prepare you for this. The thickness of the jungle, the way sound disappears, the way the sand grinds into every cut. Officers shout to keep moving, to keep low. Some men crack jokes about the heat, about the bugs, about how easy the landing was. You laugh, but it's nervous. There's an edge to it, because nobody really believes it's going to stay this quiet. By midday, the air shimmers. You can't see the ships offshore for the glare, but the knowledge that the fleet is out there keeps you steady. You dig deeper, sweat more, and try not to think about what comes next. For now, you're alive. Boots on Guadalcanal, part of the first wave to seize the strip. For a moment, it almost feels like you belong here. Night comes fast in the tropics. You lie in your shallow foxhole, sweat cooling on your neck, listening to the jungle breathe. Somewhere out on the water, the Navy's big guns are supposed to keep watch, but there is a strange hush over the beach. Then, without warning, the horizon erupts. Flashes split the dark, red, orange, white. The thunder of guns rolls in, heavy and close, but you can't tell who is firing at who. Word passes down the line, ships are burning out near Savo Island. You catch a glimpse, just a silhouette against the flames, and then it is gone. Minutes stretch. The air is thick with the smell of cordite and salt, and you taste fear, sharp and metallic. Some men try to sleep, but nobody really does. The ground vibrates with distant explosions. Rumors move faster than the crabs in the sand. Cruisers hit, transports in danger, the Japanese fleet somewhere out there in the dark. You grip your rifle, knuckles white, waiting for orders, but none come. The night feels endless. Someone mutters a prayer. Another curses the Navy, then falls silent. When dawn finally breaks, the world is changed. The horizon, once crowded with grey hulls and the promise of help, is empty. No more signal flags, no more steady rumble of engines, just open sea and the low drone of enemy planes circling high above. The last transport has slipped away before sunrise, taking with it crates of food, barrels of fuel, boxes of ammunition, and every sense of security you had left. There is nothing but the jungle at your back and the knowledge that you are on your own. A numbness settles in. You check your gear, 4 days' worth of ammunition, maybe less if things go bad. Rations are whatever was dragged ashore or left behind in the scramble. You hear an officer say, "We hold what we've got, boys. No one's coming to bail us out." The words hit hard. You look around at the other faces, young, dirty, some trying to hide how scared they are, some not bothering anymore. The phrase starts to spread, raggedy-ass Marines. It is a joke, but it is not funny. It is just true. The Navy left, and you are still on the island. The only thing left to do is dig in and wait for whatever comes next. You count every round. A Marine checks his bandolier, fingers moving slow, lips pressed tight. 150 in the pouch, that's all you get. No promise of more. You hear the ration officer call the numbers down the line, voice flat, no room for argument. Each man gets his share, nothing extra. There is talk of the big guns, but only a handful of the 75mm pack howitzers made it ashore. 4, maybe 5, for the whole perimeter. They look small out in the open, barrels pointed at the tree line, but they feel like the only thing between you and the dark. Machine guns are precious. The Browning M1917s, water-cooled, heavy, hard to move, are dug in at the strong points, ammo cans stacked beside them like gold. Riflemen run their thumbs over the clips, counting, recounting. Some men have the new Garans, most still carry Springfields. You get what you are given. A few grenades, a bayonet, maybe a spare magazine if you are lucky. At night, you are told to hold fire unless you see a target. No wild shooting, no panic bursts. Every shot has to count. You watch the officers huddle over a battered clipboard, scratching down who has what. They whisper about the next resupply, but no one believes it will come soon. The jungle presses in, hot and alive, and you wonder if you will have enough to last. By dusk, the sound of men loading and unloading rifles is the only music. You settle in, eyes on the darkness, hands wrapped tight around your weapon. On Guadalcanal, ammunition is life, and there is never enough. Hunger gnaws at you in a way nothing else ever has. The first days, you count the crackers in your ration tin, break them in half, try to make them last, but the numbers do not add up. The supply officer's voice is flat. 1,000, maybe 1,200 calories a day if you are lucky. That is 2 cans of meat, a hard biscuit, some powdered milk if it has not gone moldy. Men who used to weigh 170 pounds are down to 155, belts cinched tight, uniforms hanging loose. You watch a buddy pull his dog tags out, bone and skin where muscle used to be. The jungle does not care. Mosquitoes swarm your ankles, biting through socks, shirts, even the canvas of your tent. By the second week, fevers run like wildfire. Malaria hits hardest at night. You shiver, sweat, teeth chattering in the thick air, then burn so hot you see colors behind your eyelids. Corpsmen move between cots in the tent hospital, checking pulses, handing out quinine tablets that taste like rust. They are running out. There are more men burning up than there are hands to cool them. You hear the groans, the hacking coughs, the muttered prayers. Some men lose track of the date. Others lose consciousness altogether. You try to keep moving, but every step feels heavy. Digging foxholes, hauling crates, even lifting a rifle becomes a test. The weight you lose is not just muscle, it is hope too. Food comes in fits and starts: a can of peaches, a handful of rice, a spoonful of jam scraped from the bottom of a crate. Men trade cigarettes for a mouthful of meat. Sometimes a corpsman will slip a fevered private a biscuit just to see him smile. You learn to eat slow, savor every bite, because you do not know when the next meal will come. The days blur together, but the hunger and the fever never let you forget where you are. Everything on Guadalcanal revolved around that muddy strip of ground. Henderson Field was not just an airfield. It was the only thing that kept us from being swallowed by the jungle and the sea. The Japanese wanted it back, badly enough to come at us night after night. We knew why. Whoever held the airstrip could control the skies, and if we lost it, we would be cut off for good. Every day, ground crews patched bomb craters with whatever they could find: timber from shattered barges, sheets of metal, even palm trunks. Their hands were raw, faces streaked with oil and sweat, shirts clinging to their backs. The runway was never dry. It was a mess of mud and broken boards, but by mid-August, the first Marine fighters landed, F-4F Wildcats, battered but flying. They called us the Cactus Air Force. It sounded tough, but we were barely hanging on. Those planes changed everything. With them, we could spot Japanese ships creeping in, intercept bombers before they reached the field, and strafe enemy positions in the jungle. The numbers mattered: 3, sometimes 4 sorties a day, each one a gamble with fuel and luck. Every time a wildcat roared down that strip, every time a dauntless dive bomber clawed into the sky, it meant the Japanese could not own the daylight. But the enemy learned quick. They started coming at night, shelling the airfield, slipping troops through the dark, hoping to catch us off guard. Daytime was ours, but after sunset, we braced for hell. Still, we held the field. Not because we were stronger or better supplied, but because we knew what losing it would mean. The airstrip was the only thing between us and oblivion. So we kept digging, kept fighting, kept praying those battered planes would keep flying. Henderson Field was misery, but it was hope too, the one thing we could not afford to lose. Moonlight cuts silver lines across the Tenaru, but you can't see much. The air is thick, every breath heavy with the smell of mud and sweat. Somewhere past the sandbar, branches snap. Too many, too loud. You grip your rifle, knuckles slick, and listen. The jungle on the far bank seems to breathe. Then all at once, it erupts. Shouts in Japanese, the scrape of boots in shallow water, the metallic clatter of bayonets. You shout a warning down the line, voice barely above a whisper. And then the world explodes. A whistle blows. The first wave comes straight at the barrier. Hundreds of silhouettes, rifles raised, some with swords flashing in the moonlight. The sandbar you helped build yesterday slows them, but not enough. Someone yells, "Hold your fire," but it's too late. The Browning machine gun opens up, spitting red tracers, and the sound drowns out everything else. You squeeze off shots, one after another, the Springfield kicking against your shoulder. The canister rounds from the 37mm gun rip through the crowd, tearing men apart. Screams echo across the water. Some try to crawl under the wire, others throw grenades that land short, hissing in the mud. You see a buddy go down, face first, not moving. Another Marine drags him back by the collar, cursing under his breath. The Japanese keep coming, bodies piling up at the barrier. It feels endless. Minutes stretch, sweat stings your eyes. Your hands shake so hard you fumble your reload. Then, just as suddenly, it's over. The survivors stagger back into the trees, leaving the creek choked with the dead and dying. You count 12 from your squad not answering roll, 20 more wounded. The air stinks of blood and cordite. You sit in the mud, chest heaving, and realize you're still alive. For now, the line holds. But you know they'll be back. The ridge was nothing more than a thin strip of coral and mud, barely 15 feet above the jungle, but it was the last barrier before Henderson Field. That night, it became everything. rain hammered down, mixing with sweat and gun oil. Lieutenant Colonel Edson moved along the line, helmet askew, voice calm. "Hold your fire until you see them," he told us. "We're not giving up this ground." By midnight, the jungle below churned with movement. The Japanese advanced in silence, hundreds of boots muffled by wet leaves. Then whistles cut through the dark, sharp and unnatural. Flares burst overhead, turning the world pale. Machine guns spat fire up the slope. We fired back, rifles kicking, barrels burning hot. Company B took the first hit, bayonets, bamboo spears, grenades rolling into foxholes. Edson's orders came through the chaos. Pull back 20 yards, then 10, then hold at the knob. He was everywhere, shouting, steady, always moving. Raiders and parachute battalion fired until their hands cramped. Mud jammed the machine guns, men cleared them with their teeth. Smoke and rain blurred everything. Ammunition ran low. Bandoliers passed from hand to hand, sometimes stripped from the dead. The Japanese pressed again and again, bodies piling at the wire. Some broke through, fighting hand to hand, rifle butts, knives, fists. Men prayed, cursed, called for their mothers. By dawn, the line had bent, but not broken. Edson stood at the crest, sleeves torn, eyes red, and nodded. Henderson Field was still ours. The silence that followed told the cost, written on the faces of those who staggered down the ridge, alive but forever changed. The nights after the ridge were quieter, but nobody slept easy. Every man wore the same hollow-eyed look, cheeks sunken, belts cinched tight on waists that had wasted away. You could see ribs through shirts, skin pale under the crust of mud and sweat. We joked about being the raggedy-ass Marines, but the joke got thinner as the weeks dragged on. Some men were so weak they couldn't lift a full ammo box. Cigarettes passed from hand to hand, sometimes just a stub, sometimes only a drag. That was brotherhood, no speeches, just a shared silence and a ration split in the dark. Then, one night in October, the horizon flashed again, but this time it was different. The deep thunder of battleship guns rolled over the jungle, USS Washington and South Dakota, their 16-inch shells screaming overhead. They let loose more than 3,800 tons of high explosive in 2 nights, tearing the earth, smashing Japanese batteries, and lighting the sky in a way we hadn't seen since the first landing. The ground shook, and for once, it wasn't our line breaking. We gripped our rifles and watched the sky, not sure whether to cheer or duck. When the shelling stopped, the air was thick with smoke and the smell of scorched earth. The silence that followed felt heavier than the bombardment. A few of us sat on the edge of a crater, legs dangling, too tired to move. Someone fished out a cigarette, broke it in half, and passed it down the line. There wasn't much to say. We had survived the storm, but the cost was written on our bodies. Weight lost, friends gone, eyes that wouldn't close at night. Relief didn't come with a parade. It came with the slow realization that somehow we were still here. You can still taste the salt, feel the mud in your boots, hear the jungle breathing at night. The world moves on, but some battles never quite end. Malaria scars, lost friends, memories that wake you sweating. Every time we send young people into chaos, we gamble with futures in the name of necessity. The price of holding ground is paid long after the shooting stops. Thanks for walking this ground with us.